Hello and welcome to today's webinar in partnership with 360 Pack Mastery Advisory for Pack and the European Co-Packers Association, hosted by Packaging Europe. So in the second of our series of webinars taking a deep dive into the PPWR, we will look at some common myths around the new regulation and dispel them. So my name is Elisabeth Skura. I'm the editor at large here at Packaging Europe, and I'm very pleased to welcome our three expert speakers today. We have Marius Tent, who is founder of Via Packaging UG and 360 Pack Mastery. We've also got Patrick Poitevin, who is director at Advisory for Pack. And last but not least, we have Ton Nipscher, who is executive director at the European Co-Packers Association. They're also content partners of Packaging Europe's Sustainable Packaging Summit, and you can look forward to even more in-depth discussions and talks on the topic of the PPWR and obviously a lot more at the event, which this year takes place in Utrecht in the Netherlands from November 10th till November 12th. So yeah, back to the topic of today's webinar. With the final legal text of the PPWR now adopted, it's time to separate fact from fiction and ensure compliance strategies are based on what the law actually requires. And our speakers today will offer an in-depth regulatory session where we'll dispel the most persistent myths surrounding the PPWR and will provide clear legally grounded explanation of what is and isn't in the regulation. And they'll help debunk some common misperceptions, some of which are, we don't need to act until 2028, this only applies to plastics, or everything will be harmonized under one EPR system, we can wait until national transposition, or we tackled the PPWR and we now ticked all the boxes. So yeah, I really look forward to hearing our speakers' take on that. Before we get into our discussion, just a little bit of housekeeping. There are a few minutes at the end of this webinar reserved for an audience Q&A. So make sure you have any questions to our speakers in the chat, and I'll put them to them during the Q&A. If we don't have time to answer your questions, I'm sure our speakers will be happy to follow up afterwards, or you can catch up with them at the Sustainable Packaging Summit as well. So for any technical questions, please select the support button, which you'll see on the left-hand side of your screen. So yeah, now over to you, Marius, Patrick, and Ton, for a bit more of a detailed introduction of yourselves.
Thank you very much, Liz. Much appreciated. And thanks a lot in all our names for the invite. Really good, actually. And super proud about the partnership we are having together. Because now we are doing just briefly introduction. It's a 60 seconds. You know, we are going around the table here. Hi and welcome. I am Marius and I live and breathe packaging. It's been the heartbeat of my career for about 25 years. Quite some years, right? And then after decades in the corporate world, leading complex packaging strategy, really starting from writing specs, developing packaging, running packaging trials, developing them with users, and I'm doing as well pack strategy at the highest level, and bringing really real packaging in the marketplace and learning a great deal along the way. I made a huge, bold move. I launched my own venture last year, built to help packaging professionals future-proof their businesses. Not just to comply with regulation, because this is one thing, but as well to lead through it. And now as an entrepreneur, and you see the intrapreneur, because that's what I was as well in corporate world, it's moving, becoming an entrepreneur. I wear many hats, and today I'm going to speak under my Via Packaging UG hat. Our mission is super clear there to help organizations accelerate their sustainability journey and become truly PPWR ready, which is a huge deal, with clarity, confidence, and speed. Each of those words are very important there. And then that's exactly why we created 360packmastery.com. It's a unique packaging knowledge and strategy platform designed to decode complex regulation and simplify the work of everyone involved in packaging today and the future. It's designed by us for former us, if I can say that way. And if you care about packaging, sustainability, compliance, and staying ahead of the curve, you are really in the right place here. Let's master, and more than anything else, let's drive this together. And moving now to Ton, please.
I thought you were going to Patrick first. Sorry.
Oh, sorry,
right. That's fine. My name is Ton. I grew up in between packaging machines and packaging. My parents ran different packaging companies. In the previous life, I was responsible for the Pringles cans, and since about 10 years, I'm an independent packaging consultant. I also work with the Pack Hub, and I have a role on the board of the European Co-packing Association. And since a year and a half, I'm the executive director there and representing the European contract packers and contract manufacturers. Over to you, Patrick.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm Patrick Poitevin. I've always been in packaging, in R&D mainly, or packaging development, or packaging engineering, packaging innovation. 18 years with Estée Lauder, then 2 years with Nestle, 2 years Campina, then 3 years with Coty, 3 years with Marks and Spencer's Cozy, which is a full service supplier. And the last 15 years I was with Mondelez, which was originally Cadbury Schweppes, then Cadbury, then Kraft Foods, and then Mondelez. And I retired 3 years ago. And as you can see, I'm still retired, but I'm still very active. I'm like a little pit bull, and I can't let go about packaging. So I'm contacted and approached still by brand owners, by machine suppliers, coating suppliers, paper mills, organizations like the Pack Hub, for instance, also Packaging Europe, but also by merger and acquisition companies or investors who would like to know a little bit more about current industries in packaging. So that's about myself.
Great, thank you for the introductions. So yeah, I think you had some slides prepared for us.
Perfect, very much. Thanks a lot, Liz, and I'm going to take it from here. I will be starting with dispelling the myths on the PPWR, and I really want to start with this statement. You are here, all of you, and we have seen that we have really a huge audience today. It's because you know what really packaging leadership takes today. It's so much about putting sustainability of the center of everything and really get ready for the EU packaging and packaging waste regulation. It's really getting PPWR future-proof. And then how we are going to tackle it. We really wanted to make a bit of different webinar today. Instead of very standard one, we really wanted to make it a bit more interactive. We are going to have, let's say, those 4 sections. We will start dispelling some myths. We are going to have each of us a brief presentation. Then we are going to ask each of others provoking questions. As you realize, we work for brand owners. We have a huge experience in this room today. And we are saying, let's provoke a bit each other's moving forward. Then we are going to wrap up with a call to action. And then last but not least, we are going to pick as well some of your questions from the chat. We really try to do that within the 1 hour. Let's see how we are going to manage it. Then on how we tackle it today, it's a 360 approach. It's kind of senior packaging leadership perspective, but as well the packaging experts one, the people who really did the stuff, the people who know what it takes to really qualify a packaging on the line, what it takes to qualify a packaging with the end users, and what means cradle to cradle. And as well co-packing, because what we are really thinking, all 3 of us here, is this 360 approach, but as well across the whole value chain, because the key here on making things happen is really driving value across the value chain. One disclaimer, we really need to do this one. This information provided, it's only for informational purposes today and does not constitute legal advice. The presentation does not cover all aspects of the PPWR. We really need to spend the whole week, actually end of the week, if you need to cover all of them. No part of the content should be really open for compliance with the new regulation. And then we accept no legal liability. We have to say that. And then for official, let's say, requirements and compliance, please refer directly to the final adopted law there. And because now we have a name for the law, right? Law 40 from 2025. So simple to keep it in mind. But even now, before going into, let's say, the brief presentation, we would like to understand where you are. And then we would like Elizabeth to launch, Liz to launch this poll, please, if possible.
Yes, I'll quickly launch that poll for you.
Thanks very much. And then I have to give a heads up to everyone. We would like to have as many responses as possible. It might take a bit until we are going to get the responses, because that's how the software is working.
Yes, and while we're waiting for the results, I thought I could ask you, why are you interested in asking this particular question? How will it help you sort of to give an informed webinar today?
I think, you know, Liz, why this question actually, because it's really telling the status quo. We really want to see, are people aware, are people driving actions, or they are really on the beginning of their journey? As simple as that. You know, before starting a journey and putting a vision, you always define where you are, the starting point.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I think we have about 10 seconds more for the poll to run, but I can kind of see a clear winner there. Oh yes, there we go. So we have the biggest answer was taking real action already at 49%, which is quite promising. However, we also have 30% stuck in analysis by paralysis, and then we have 9% fully on track and confident, which is good. But then also another 10%, no clue where to start. Are these kind of the results you expected from this poll, roughly?
No surprise, Liz, actually. What it's a bit very interesting, I would say, and you can take it in the British way as well, you know. It's like, yes, on one side, and being optimistic, we always see the positive side of the coin. Yes, there are a lot of people, half of the people taking actions, but it's very interesting as well, because if you can no clue where to start, we still have 10% of the people saying no clue, and we have as well stuck in analysis by paralysis. This is huge, actually. If you really kind of sum the two, 40%, I think it's a too big number, thinking how critical is to move at pace moving forward. But we will kind of hopefully with what we are going to drive, and thanks a lot for running the poll, we are going to really help a bit increase the sense of urgency here. Then starting briefly with the big umbrella, you know, PPWR did not come from nowhere. Europe was leading the way and is still leading the way on sustainability and obviously as well in competitiveness. But what we see here, everything started with the European Green Deal in 2019. This was setting the stage for EU sustainable packaging, EU sustainability transformation. And then the new Circular Economy Action Plan in 2020 was reinforcing the essential requirements for packaging. And now what we see here, it's kind of everything led to the new packaging and packaging waste regulation, PPWR Law 2025-40. What I want to say before moving forward, I am for many years in packaging. There was no every single packaging law as transformational as this is. This is the biggest law or the biggest transformation driven in the last, I would say, 30 years in packaging industry. It's starting in Europe, but it's clearly having the influence in other parts of the globe. Then I'm going to kind of dispel some of the myths there. But before that, I really want to share very briefly an introduction, because it's more about giving than telling about ourselves, about Via Packaging, the company I founded last year. We are focusing on three big things. One, it's partnering with European consortiums for implementing real packaging circularity. We are driving, we support with the packaging, with the strategy, but as well making real project in real life, driving action where it matters more, driving real change. Second one, something I am very proud of is the 360 Pack Mastery platform. It's one of its kind. I was dreaming in every job I was having over all my career to have a place like that. I needed the best friend at work, you know, for everyone touching packaging, and this is what I created when I started my own business. And then the third thing, it's supporting businesses on their PPWR journey. Last but not least, you know, the 360 Pack Mastery, there are three things we are helping with there. First, PPWR summarizing in a super simple way what are the key requirements, and then giving solution, because it's so much about finding solutions. And we are picking solutions there. What are solutions? For example, monomaterial flexible, because clearly it's a big move and it's the right thing to move into monomaterials there. And we think here flexible plastic packaging. Then molded fiber, high barrier paper, inks, coatings, adhesives, actually, all what are really kind of moving into direction and spot on the PPWR articles. And as well, recycling solution. For example, a recycling solution for hard to recycle plastics. On the country fact sheets, and this is really the biggest thing actually, and the thing we are extremely proud. We have that for 30 countries, 27 member states plus UK, Switzerland and Norway. We are really kind of starting to have summaries that are really kind of going through food contact regulation, ink ordinances, what is packaging and packaging waste regulation, because it's still different in many member states. What are the bans? What are recycled content requirements? What is EPR? What you have to do step by step to be compliant? And what are all the EPR schemes in one country? What is the plastic tax? What is as well happening with collection, starting what goes in what bin, what packaging goes in what bin color, and as well what it's helping on the paper infrastructure in recycling, what happens in collection, sorting, and recycling, what happens on metal, and as well on plastic for sure. Really is stuff that is helping every packaging engineer before developing and launching something in one country. Very important today, was never that important as today, to understand exactly what happens in that member state. And resources, link to design for recycling, link for visualization tool, links for LCA tools for either for packaging or for all the business. It's really meant to be that one place where you get all, or it's very hard, you will never get all, right? But the most crucial information you need when you develop packaging today. Then moving now to myths, really one by one, and we are going to focus only on key that are coming so often those days. We have plenty of time. Completely wrong. There is no time to waste. There is already, the first requirements are coming for 2026 by 12th of August next year. Businesses, they have to really be in line to be compliant with the restriction on PFAS, for example. It's a very challenging thing to tackle, requires a lot of effort, requires a lot of focus, requires a lot of expertise, and it's super short timing. A huge challenge coming in a short time. And already the conformity declaration should be done, should be ready for next year. Then we have in 2028 labeling, and think when you are changing labeling, you have really to face in, face out stuff. It's a huge implication, especially if you have a lot of SKUs. And last but not least, recyclability, recycled content minimization. Very important to why everyone is focusing a lot of things, but minimization is going to be extremely important moving forward. Thinking to weight, but as well to volume of packaging. And myth, this only applies to plastic. No, the PPWR, it's really for all packaging. It goes across the whole value chain, you know, for producer, converter, components, retailers, HoReCa, and applies to all packaging, not only plastic. It's for household collection, but as well for CNI, for commercial one. It's for business to business, but as well, the most important, obviously, business to consumer. And as says there, you know, it's really all packaging and constituents. And then it's concerning the whole EU 27 member states, but as well it's including imports, very, very important, which means bringing stuff from the third countries. This is European law, but clearly it's having influences across the globe there. Now moving to the next one. PPWR, it's mainly around recyclability. No, it's much more complex, and it's in line really with the waste management hierarchy. It's thinking recyclability, recycled content, minimization, labeling, reusability. It's EPR modulation. It's a very comprehensive law, actually, and you have really key requirements. And in market, very, very important, in market access conditions. That means you comply, you can put your stuff on the market. You are not complying, in principle, you cannot put your products on the market. Then, packaging compliance, it's only the manufacturer's responsibilities. And even going to say it's not the case, very important definitions are making a huge difference in the new PPWR. That's one of the first things to start looking into it. Producer, usually it's encompassing manufacturer, distributors, and importers. But what you see, the obligation across are really applying across the whole value chain. Everyone is having one responsibility there. It's a manufacturer, it's a distributor, it's an importer, it's a packaging supplier, it's a retailer, or it's a HoReCa. Everyone is getting responsibilities in the new PPWR. And then, if packaging is technical, recyclable, it's compliant. Yeah, I design a mono, let's say PE flexible packaging, stand up out, I can go sleep. No, you have really to make sure that that's going really to kind of be recycled at scale as well. It's designed for recycling, but in parallel should be recycled at scale. That means in reality, in practice. And what we see there, I'm going just to take one example. Is the plastic, because it's a great example and everyone is watching at it, right? By 2030, recycle rate target should be 55% of all plastic packaging. It's 50% already for this year, for 2025. By 2035, recycling scale target is 55% only alone for plastic flexible packaging. To get to 55%, which is minimum, very important, that's the minimum we have to achieve to be recycled at scale. You have to have a collection of 82. Out of that one, 82% to be sorted, and out of that one, 82% to be recycled. I let you think how huge is the jump there. Then the next one, if you meet PPWR key requirements, our packaging is fully compliant. No way actually, because what it is, you know, there are much more laws. There are food contact regulations, there are ink ordinances, depending on the countries. Not in all the countries, there is REACH, plastic for food contact regulation, recycled plastic. And there are national one as well, because quite often nations, and I will not give the name, but there are some usual suspects there. There are countries which really go above the EU regulation there. There are national laws, there are EPR that are different across every country. There is the DRS, you know, there is reusability measure, which is different. Summing up, you really have to look to understand the regulation as well, which is on top of that one. And then globally, you know, it's the Global Plastic Treaty as well, which is getting traction, and hope is going to get more traction. And then the other one, it's only impacting packaging and packaging regulatory departments. I'm sure if you are in packaging and packaging regulatory, I mean packaging design, packaging development, packaging regulatory, you will love me for that one, because it's much more responsibilities. Yes, packaging and packaging heads usually, they have to take the lead, and nobody's in a better position than them to take that on. But nevertheless, this is a shared responsibility, goes across all the functions and goes across all the levels. It's horizontally and vertically across the company. It's R&D packaging, it's regulatory, it's procurement, supply chain, and it's legal. And then on ESG, you know, it's marketing, it's finance, it's sales, it's IT. And last but not least, very important, portfolio management. And then really super crucial, company board. It's even the CEO of the company, CFO, Chief Marketing Officer, obviously Chief R&D Officer. Everyone should be really aware about that one. Why? This is going to influence big time the business because of in-market access conditions. If you are not meeting those targets, you might, as I was saying before, you cannot put on the market, will have a huge influence on, let's say, on your portfolio moving forward. And then summing up, you know, sure, PPWR, we all know what stands for, right? Packaging and packaging waste regulation. But let's be honest, you know, for the ones that we are having a bit of gray hair, it really means please prepare, works require. Let's not forget, this is to prepare, this is to prioritize, this is to work, this is to respond with a huge, huge sense of urgency moving forward. And then, Patrick, I let it up to you, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Marius. That is a whole pile of information, of course, and we appreciate your input on that. There is, of course, more myths like that as well. Plastic is, for instance, doom and gloom. Paper is the solution, etc. There's also a myth, but of course, we can go into detail that as well. Also, it will cripple the smaller industries or the smaller companies, but there are exemptions there as well, or this EU related, what about the UK, etc. So there's many more myths as well in that sense, but we come to that a little bit later, and if not in this session, we can cover that as well in future contacts as well. So what I would like to look at is from the R&D point of view, which is my background, of course, my experience as well, what has been done so far, because it's not just now, and Marius mentioned already, since 2019, there has been some involvement as well. There is the Blue Planet as well, but what has been done the last 50 years, since the 70s, since I have been as well involved in packaging. What is the EU PPWR versus the UK? Let's say, what are the challenges in materials and the limitations as well? Then the infrastructure, and then as well the recyclable grades. So there is more to it from the R&D point of view. Marius mentioned already quite a bit. bit, but I wouldn't like to copy or duplicate that either, but there has been already some evolvement from the past, but very slowly. In the 70s, for instance, there was pollution control. In the UK, there was as well the waste oil directive in the EU. Then Germany was always the lead in the 80s while collecting plastic or bottles in general. Then there was the green dot as well, where Germany took the lead as well. Then it became obvious that landfill became oversaturated, so we had to do something about recycling, etc. So there is the Blue Planet with David Attenborough, which is quite important, and that was quite impactful, where people could see in the ocean what was happening with, of course, plastic, but waste in general. So that is quite important. Also in terms of technologies, which improved quite a bit. And then, of course, we had the PPWR, which came into fruition the 22nd of January 2025, and will be as well effective next year. By coincidence, my hobby is eclipses, solar eclipses. It is on Eclipse Day, 12th of August next year, 2026, which is going from Greenland to Iceland, over Spain, etc. But then it will be effective as well, which is quite important for many of us. So that was the overview in a summary of the last 50 years. But what about the difference between PPWR, EU versus the UK? Because the UK is not part of the EU, although in the UK, they say like, well, in Europe, well, technically, geographically, UK is in Europe, but the EU is still different. And we know that as well, since Brexit as well. So we have to consider UK as a different nation, national laws, national guidance, etc. The EU is 27 member states, and the UK is bound or binded by the national laws as well. It is less harmonized, it is less prescriptive, it is less standardized, and relying on taxes. So that is in general, in fact, where the UK stands, but they have to catch up quite fast as well. Don't forget as well, many companies like ours, and that is not just the multinationals, are exporting or importing from other countries out of Europe. So we have to bear that in mind as well in terms of the legislation, in terms of as well food contact, etc. Because Marius mentioned that as well, the legislation direct contact food is completely different, for instance, in Japan, in Australia, than for instance in the UK or in Europe or even in the States, etc. So bear that in mind as well, and that is the same for recyclability, etc. So if you do some recyclability tests in the UK, for instance, is that applicable for the EU, but is that as well applicable for New Zealand? So you have to make sure that it is all harmonized and that you cover that as well if you export to those different countries. So also the challenges in materials, but the challenges in general for the different aspects. As you can see here, bullet points, but there is more detail behind it. There is too much, in fact, to go in so much detail. In plastics, for instance, you have as well the supply chain issue, where you will have the challenge of obtaining high quality recycled material, for instance. So you have to start now already. Like Marius said, it's not wait till 2028 or even further down the road, but start investigating already what recycled material you're gonna need, and make sure that your supply chain is already up to date at that. The same for paper and paperboard. Try to focus on monomaterial and not compostable coatings, let's say, but also try to avoid laminates, etc. There are already some countries who try to avoid, let's say, metallized paper or metallized board, or even laminated with PE layer, although it is within the 95%, let's let's say, recyclability. In some countries, they're saying, well, if we recycle it, it is still a residue. What are we going to do with the residue of the materials? So bear that in mind as well, that you have to cover all those aspects within your materials. So also from the metal point of view, is it a return possible? Is the infrastructure there? Most of the countries don't accept, let's say, aluminium cans, for instance. They have glass, yes. Plastic is already less in many countries, but aluminium cans, for instance, is more a challenge. So we have to deposit return systems. Bear that in mind, that the infrastructure is not always there, and that you have some challenges with it as well. Also, from the regulatory point of view, do you have to reduce your shelf life to comply to your sustainability not just goals, because in the past it was, let's say, a goal, but now it becomes you are obliged, in fact, to follow, or you're related to penalty points. So you have to bear that in mind as well. To the next one, to keep the time scale as well good. So the infrastructures. So I have been working as a freelance as well the last 2.5 years on the Holy Grail project, which is a digital watermarking and sorting, etc. So, but is the infrastructure there? Infrastructure of collecting the materials, or the collecting the waste? Is it the sorting? You have the different sorting and you have the different recycling centers. Is it a standardized or a more specialized recycle? Can they do the de-inking, for instance? Can they segregate as well coatings? Can they segregate, let's say, like lighter foils from flexible materials? So the technologies are there, but it's not necessary that recycle centers have the ability to do so, because they don't get the national funding, or they don't have the funding themselves. Bear in mind as well, and I just want to mention that as well, a lot of recyclers have lately big fires, and that is because the consumer throws away their batteries in normal waste. That causes fires with those kind of recyclers, and a lot of recyclers have to close down, getting bankruptcy, etc., or have to close down because there have been big fires. Look in the press, and that is really concerned. But again, from the technology point of view, you can segregate everything from food to non-food. You can segregate a particular brand in sorting centers, etc. The machinery, the technology is there from the R&D point of view, but it's not everywhere possible. So bear in mind how the infrastructure is in terms of recycling, and then as well, of course, of reuse. If you have a certain brand and they are producing a lot of polypropylene, you can segregate polypropylene also from that particular brand. But is it then usable, for instance, for food grade? That is the legislation what you have to follow as well in that sense. And then there is a grade. We have the different grades. Is it 95%, 8%, 70%? That is all to distinguish and to verify with your recycler or with your laboratories. There's many laboratories who can do the tests as well. You can do snapshot tests that it is food grade, but is that good enough for that particular country that it is food grade? Because that is completely different. Some countries, for instance, still accept let's say recycled paper or recycled board as food grade, as long as the snapshot is there twice a year, let's say. But many other countries don't accept it because recycled board and paper can cause other issues like mineral oil contents, etc. Mineral oil is harder to check as well because it can be from the machinery. It's not necessary from materials itself, but etc. So that is a bit in a nutshell what I wanted to express from the R&D point of view. Over to you, Tom.
Right. Thank you, Patrick. There's a couple of words I took out of your presentation. First one was infrastructure. That it has to be there. The other one was there is no clear choice between paper or plastics. The packaging has to be fit for purpose. So just moving to paperization of packaging is not the solution. I think most of you on the panel will know this, but let's go into a little bit more deep dive in this. So my role for the co-packers is to explain to you a little bit about the people who actually have to execute all the new ideas, because co-packers are more and more taking over the roles where brand owners are stepping back. And now this is the first slide. It's me. I'm an experienced packaging professional. I'm the executive director of the European Co-packing Association and the board member as well. I'm a juror of NL Packaging Awards, and I'm a consultant at Tobacco. Right, next one is, if it's moving. Yes. So what is co-packing? Co-packing is basically production and packing of products which are on the market, where brand owners are stepping back. And I've used this example of Rituals. I think everybody knows the brand Rituals. You've come across it on airports, on ferries, and also in high street stores and in their own retail outlets. Rituals is a marketing organization. They have a brilliant concept of new products, both lifestyle and in cosmetics and in other products, but it's a marketing organization and do this brilliantly, but they have also brilliantly decided that they do not want to be involved in the actual production. And so do a couple of companies, which I'll come to later. But this is where we see the big split and the change in the whole supply chain. You have brand owners like Rituals, but like other ones as well, who decide that they are very good at building a brand, making sure it gets on the shelf, making sure it has the nicest packaging designs possible, which this one has as well, and then make sure that they step out of everything and they outsource everything else. So contract manufacturing or contract packing, it's a matter of definition. We call it fulfillment, external manufacturing, outsourcing, third-party logistics, and also let's not forget private labels. Private labels are basically contract manufactured labels for a retailer. So just to make sure that we're talking about the same things here. So my point of the global supply chain, which is rapidly evolving, we have a technological acceleration, we have a changing consumer behavior, to which I'll come to later. As we all know, we have economic disruption, and as Mary has already referred to, we have regulatory pressure, which is hitting us quite hard. And at the moment, the whole industry is in what we call a perfect storm. We have rising costs of just about everything: labor, energy, materials. We have skilled labor shortages. We have new legislation and sustainability mandates. We have freight and transport constraints. And we have the elephant in the room, call them tariffs. We don't know what's going to happen. It could change per hour. We're not sure what's going to happen, but it will affect all our industry, and not only on materials, but also on supply chains. I've heard of big supply chains being stopped and big lines being stopped because there was less import coming from different regions into other regions. So there's going to be some disruptions of the supply chain as well. The other thing on the perfect storm part two, we have inflation or stagflation, and we have a geopolitical instability. No need to talk about that in more detail. Just switch on your news and you'll know. And we have a fragmented global production and sourcing aspect here. And then last but not least, we have a consumer with a say-do gap. The consumer who will say, if you interview them, no, we will buy sustainable, we will buy biological, we will buy gluten-free, whatever. Once they stand in front of the shelf and they have the option between a standard product and a sustainable product, they'll go usually for the cheapest version. But I think this is a big thing which we all have to factor in. We have some serious sustainability challenges. I think paperization was already mentioned. I think what was not mentioned is the greenwashing. Greenwashing will be made illegal under PPWR, and I'm sure Marius can go out on this topic for an hour or two. So simple lightweighting of a product or packaging is not the answer. realistic shelf life. As I mentioned in my previous life, I was responsible for the Pringles cans in Europe. They had a shelf life of 18 months because they were produced in one site in the US, and now they're produced in more sites all over the world. Do they still need 18-month shelf life? Question that all the time with marketing. Designed for recycling. The pack has to be redesigned so that the consumer knows that it can be recycled. But then the consumer has to find that information on the pack. And this is always the challenge with marketing. They do not allow for space on the pack to get some recycling instructions. They think just chasing arrows will be good enough. But there's something going on with eco-modulation now as well, which is one of the triggers that the PPWR uses. In some countries, they've already started, like in the Netherlands, and I think it's coming as well under EPR in the UK. Recyclable materials will be cheaper taxed as non-recyclable materials. And then, of course, we have the whole debate about emotions versus the facts. I sometimes say that NGOs who influence the policymakers and who have the ear of the policymakers, they make it their business model to make the story as much doom and gloom as possible. But let's not forget that, and that's a conservative number, 55% of ocean plastics is fishery related. It's not packaging. So let's be realistic about this. And this waste is being put there by consumers, not by a brand owner or not by a packaging producer. So what is the role of a co-packer or a contract manufacturer in the whole supply chain now? Brand owners, as I said, focus on building a brand and making sure it gets on the right shelf and gets there for the right price. They're not focusing anymore on operations. Co-packers are now leading the execution and the innovation. But do brand owners have agility in their DNA? I think this is basically a rhetorical question. I think if there are any brand owners under the audience, I think everybody knows and realizes that agility and quick response times is not really part of their DNA. I've been in discussions with several big brand owners a lot, where 3-year decision process was already quite quick, and you have to be lucky that they don't have a reorganization in between or a divesting process, because then it will take 5 years or longer. So just briefly about packaging and the co-packers here. Contract packing and contract manufacturing was a market, a big $100 billion globally in 2023. We expect this to grow to $160 billion in 2028, which is just 3 years away. So the CAGR here is well over 10% per annum. That confirms the rule of the brand owner stepping out of production and outsourcing it to third parties. Over to you, Marius.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. On very good, actually. And you see how everything is complementary. But then will be not us if you are just going to kind of really tell you what it's this one. You know, it's obviously would be very important to define what actions everyone can take. And actually, you know, even before going into details, this is your moment of responsibility. Take charge and lead, please. If you don't do it for you, do it for your kids, for your nephews, for whoever there. But this is the time for every single packaging leader to step up. That's one thing. Second one, very important, and that might be our particular point of view. It's really my personal point of view. This becomes licensed to operate. You have to comply. This is not going to differentiate any of the company because everyone in principle will be complying. But the ones that are really going to step up, and if they want to differentiate, they have to do more than PPWR. They have to do more than compliance. Very important, you know, we are delivering stuff. Whoever, you know, was involved on pack development knows you have to make happy a user. You have to have a frictionless experience for that user with the packaging. While you change for sustainability, it's very important that you are really ensuring all the other, the great experience with the packaging. Otherwise, they will buy it once, they might be twice because it's a sustainable product, but they might not go in the third time for it. That's why super important actually to really consider a holistic approach here. What we would suggest, it's really kind of 4 big steps here. One increase awareness. Very important, actually. It's kind of, I think that's what you are doing, all of you, because when we see how many hundreds of people, we have 241 people right now here, it's increasing awareness about really learning what's happening here, what are the implications, but it's very important to make sure that all your businesses, every person in your business is aware, because as we said, this is going to touch everyone across the business, every function in principle. Then obviously you need to start a portfolio review. You know, you can call it audit, you can call it gap analysis. It's really have to check where it is actually, where you are with the current portfolio, what it's really a priority, what is not a priority. And obviously you can have a business very savvy approach there. Last but not least, quite often it's not only the current portfolio, but there are other things, other new products, new packaging development, new product development. It's very important that whatever it's coming from the back, it's going as well to be compliant. It's not the point that you are really going to kind of future-proof your portfolio if the stuff that is coming from behind, it's really kind of playing on all rules. And then obviously internal call to actions. Make it a company board conversation. You need to convince, obviously, you need best friends with, if you're a packaging or pack regulatory, you need supply chain, you need procurement, very important, because your suppliers are going to play a huge role on this one. Then you are going to need marketing, very important, you know, to really make sure that they are going to put PPWR and sustainable packaging part of their strategy. Sales, because they have to promote what you are doing and to really increase the awareness with the retailers with the way forward. And last but not least, you know, you can do it a simple way. I have a problem here, I am going to sort it out, or you are going to say, I'm going to tackle differently. I am going to use the chance to reinvent my portfolio. I have a once in a life chance actually, and that's what we are all having now with PPWR. Every single person touching packaging, it's having once in a lifetime chance to really kind of to reinvent completely portfolio. If you do it not only for compliance, but do it for much better if possible. That's what's going to differentiate. That's going really to make the difference between a follower and a leader. And obviously, the minimum, bare minimum you have to do is to be compliant. You have to deliver the PPWR to ensure you can put your packaging, your products on the marketplace. And then if help needed, reach out to us here. We are more than happy to do that. We will need a bit of help from Liz, if you don't mind. Liz, again, we would like to run a second poll. I promise is the last one for today.
Absolutely. I'm just launching that right now. And question is, what's your biggest PPWR challenge now? After today's webinar, what still feels like the biggest hurdle? And the possible answers are where to start, turning rules into action, getting internal alignment, and managing costs and impact. Again, yeah, just while we wait for the results, I'll ask the question, why did you want to ask that particular poll? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but also what kind of answers are you expecting from this poll?
What we really are looking is actually, we really try to understand that are people kind of a bit more inspired about the actions, you know, and then really kind of to define what are really the biggest challenges they see there, because that will help us, you know, kind of helping to define how those should be tackled. But we really want to see, are people really see that this is a huge problem moving forward, or this is clearly a great opportunity, if done, only if done the right way.
Great. And
on, please.
Sorry. I think the last point, managing costs and impact, I think at the moment it's still too cheap to produce non-sustainable packaging, but this will change with eco-modulation and other stuff. So I think it is critical to make sure that you're on board, otherwise it's going to cost you a fortune.
I think as well, it has been always used as an excuse, isn't it? It costs too much. But the same is like that if you're going to drive in a city or in an area where you have children and you have a speed limit of 30, it costs a life. And in this case, it cost our earth, it costs our nature, in fact, isn't it? So we have to do something about it.
And maybe to build further on what you are saying, because it's so critical, let's just imagine, we take recyclability. You know, all those first measures, key requirements are coming in place for 2030, or recycled content. It's even better, recycled content. If everyone is going to wait until the last minute, it's like you go 10,000 people going through 1 meter door all at the same time. No chance to be compliant on time. That's why it's super important and could help even the industry if you do that. And then everyone likes pioneers. Everyone likes the ones that are really kind of taking bold move. And even talent, they want to work for companies that are driving real change. That's why we are saying the action should happen now, not when it's too late, because it will be much more expensive with a high chance not to be compliant if it's going to be done late. And I think now we have the results of the poll, right? Please.
Yes, we have a clearish leader there with 47% saying turning rules into action. Then at 27% we have managing costs and impact, and then getting internal alignment 15%, and where to start 10%. Is that kind of roughly what you expected from this poll?
I think yes, and again, a learning. Yeah, I don't think we have surprises, Patrick and Tom, right?
No, not at all. No.
This was the result I was afraid of.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly that. Because you think it's 75%. If you kind of take the second one and the fourth one, it's how you turn those in actions and how you make it viable. That's already really a big thing, actually. And if 75% of people have challenges there, it's not the easy one to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I think thanks a lot, Liz. We did the poll. That was how we go to the second part, and we did not let too much time, but we will find a way to kind of follow with people. But I guess we will cover only the fire chat between us, really the questions that we are going to provoke each of us here in the call.
I have a question for you, Marius and Tom. It's not really a technical question, but about collaboration. Everybody talks about collaboration, etc. I only see vertical collaboration where you have from supplier to brand owner, let's say, or from raw materials to the whole supply chain. But we are preaching, we are talking about it, we are presenting like now as well. What about collaboration and what are we going to do actually about it? In fact, that's what I would like to know.
If you would allow me, Marius, to step in this first. I think by means of consortiums or associations, we need to create a voice to the policymakers. And this is not only in Brussels, but also in London and other places. Because at the moment, as I said in my presentation, the NGOs have the ear of the policymakers. And the NGOs have a clear business model, which is absolutely fine. But industry is not getting heard. And I think, to be honest, and I've used it before in other discussions, especially the plastics industry have been sitting on their hands for way too long. Paper industry has done a much better job in that sense. We need to catch up as the plastics industry, and we need to speak with one voice to the policymakers. If we don't do this, they are going to dictate stuff on us, which we may not be able to handle. Marius.
I think you're to build up on that one, because it's a really good question, Patrick, and thanks, Tom, for building really strong answer there. I think, if you really look to what's happening here, there is no silver bullet. And there are reasons as well. We all know there. Every packaging is there for a reason. Every packaging on the marketplace, it's for a reason there. To change is not an easy journey there. That means while there is no silver bullet, I do see one kind of, you can call it whatever, a bullet there, but might be even silver bullet, the only one, that's collaboration. And then why this? Again, pragmatically here, to give you an example, we take the recyclability target. I was sharing those huge targets, right? 82 by 82 by 82 to get at 55. You are designing your packaging to be recyclable by design. That means in theory. But what you need actually is to really make sure that you have the infrastructure which is going to be ready on time for you there. Because you did your stuff, but if it's not really happening in practice, you cannot say it's done for nothing, but you might not be compliant. And that's why it's super important actually to kind of be part of different forums and really kind of drive with everyone across the value chain, the change which is needed so much into waste management infrastructure. You could not imagine Frankly, yes, you know, it's obvious, it's super cool when you are packaging developer. We all did, and I did that a lot, right? Focus group with user, super nice rooms, fantastic forums, but it's so powerful as a packaging guy when you go on the line, on a sorting line, and please don't go to the state of the art. Go in more countries across Europe where it's your packaging, go the manual sorting line, and then try to understand where your packaging is landing. And then you will learn a big story. Then you will realize how big is the jump, how much is the action done now. And that's, to keep it very short there, what I am really thinking consortium. You know, you think C-Flex for flexible packaging, C-Lab Europe is driving hugely for even release liner. You know, really the committed businesses, they built a consortium to kind of get the second life, really to divert to recycling the release liner there. That means there are really things happening a lot outside in the industry, and joining those consortium, driving pilots, influencing regulation, making sure the investment is happening in the infrastructure. You know, you put the money in the PPWR, it's super critical that those monies are going into building the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is going to be ready on time for you to be compliant there. Summing up, frankly, if it's one thing that it's so necessary that this could not be done without it, it's clearly this collaboration across the value chain. And what you see there, you know, in those forums, in consortiums, yes, there are competitors, but at the end of the day, it's a huge industry challenge. It's a continental challenge. That's why it's so much making sense to be part of those forums. The leaders of the change are part of those forums.
And let's not forget that it is not just only about recycling. Reuse also plays a big role.
Exactly.
And this is not only in consumers, it's also in business to business. I know of one very good initiative which started here in the Netherlands in the chemical industry, Join the Loop, where they actually started to clean packaging, bulk packaging, and then reuse them again. I think these sorts of initiatives also deserve a chance, and they play a significant role, because everything that you reuse, you don't need to recycle.
Exactly.
Mm.
You
I have another little
question, Patrick. You know, you see, but we took a lot of time to answer. Sorry for that.
I have another question, yeah, and that's about why is the product sensitive packaging companies or industries like pharmacy, medical, also dangerous goods, etc. Why do they have an exemption? Because there will be always ways that it will be exempted as well in other ways.
That's
risk. I've ordered a few pharmaceutical conferences earlier this year, and risk. It's very, very simple. Everything has to do with risk adverse, but even there they're changing, and having a very small pill in such a big blister will not be accepted anymore in the future. They are feeling the pressure as well, so they will change, and there are some very good initiatives there as well. Seen them.
I think it's so good, that question, because yes, there are exemptions, and there are very clear exceptions. You recycle content, you look to recyclability, especially for pharma application. But you know, it's exactly what Tom was saying, because first patient and the product safety comes first. That's really the biggest thing. And if you look to the PPWR, it's really meant to kind of drive sustainability, but as well to protect human health. It's really called out very clearly there. But that's one of the things. You know, there are exceptions, but they are going to be revisited. That means will be discussion if they are going to be valid moving forward. I think giving a different angle there, exactly as Tom was saying, just waiting, sleeping, saying, we have exception, it's completely wrong. Because you just need one in the industry to move. You just need one to move a first step to be in front line. You know, you don't want your competitor to do it and then you are left in offside there. That's why I think it's super critical that those industries are really taking the lead, and they are doing. You know, there are companies doing there. Because at the end of the day, much of that packaging, at the end of the life, it's really ending in the same bin as the other packaging. Let's keep that in mind. But I really see things moving there, and I think it's the right way to really drive the things at pace. And I think we don't have much time left, Liz, because I think we took too much with the presentation in the beginning.
May I make one more statement
Please.
here, a quick one? The consumer also has a responsibility, because an empty Coke bottle does not put itself on the beach, the consumer has a responsibility as well. And if the consumer really wants to be more sustainable, don't eat products out of season. Make that choice as well. If you want to have strawberries for Christmas, that's fine, but then you have to accept that it's not so sustainable. It needs to be packed extra to make sure that they can be transported safely. So consumer also has a responsibility, and we all, as we are here, are also consumers.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, like you mentioned, Marius, we're sort of a bit short of time, but I thought I'd maybe ask you, put the two most popular questions from our audience Q&A to you, just to sort of as a way to wrap up. Yeah, one question we got in was PPWR implies DFR guidelines, and who will be responsible for finalizing these guidelines? Some associations like Recyclas are very active, but who will be responsible in the end?
I think there are if this is really coming from the European community, because they will be really from the commissions, they will be deciding what will be the final guidelines for recyclability. That's coming from there. Yes, there are organizations there that are working on it, but you cannot say one of those is the final one that, at least as far as I know. But there is one thing which could be done there. I think it's very important. If those, in principle, those should be really done by 1st of Jan 2028. If you wait for those, and then, you want to be, with all of your portfolio compliant for design for recycling by 2030, you have a huge chance to miss it. Especially if you have multiple products, if you have multiple lines in multiple locations. That's why it's super important. You take your flexible, you take C-Flex guidelines, moving already in that direction, it's putting you already on the right track. You might take the other, you might take Recyclas on rigid, you take that one and you follow out there, and then you have a big chance as well, you are on the right track. I think it's super important that action starts now to move into the right direction rather than waiting until those will be finalized. Yes, it's send work on it, but again, until those are really going to become finalized and really kind of published as law, that will take a lot of time. That's why, again, it's super important things are moving right now there.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think we've got time to squeeze in one more audience question. We still seem to have lots of audience members here. So yes, question was, do you think digital product passport will help in transparency for users and will help in reporting requirements for the PPWR?
I think whatever could be done in that, overall, the simple answer is yes. And I think what we are going to see across the board, we are going to see much more transparencies because the packaging supplier has to provide data, for example, to a manufacturer. We are going to see much more transparency across the value chain moving forward. I think, yes, transparency is going to be clearly a huge work and so much needed moving forward, which will imply a lot of focus because if you want to improve transparency, you really need to close the loop across the value chain. You really have to have a fantastic collaboration with everyone there. And you might even think to digitalize your thing. Because maybe the kind of old way of kind of getting data from here and there will not work anymore. And you really need to be future-proof in that area too there. Very good question as well.
Also from the technology point of view, there is many options as well. In a way, in very extreme expression, you don't have to sort your packaging waste anymore at home if everything is digitally connected, let's say, or it is with digital watermarking, the sorting, or it is with artificial intelligence at the sorting center. It can do the sorting itself once the packaging is completely in one bin, let's say. But that is a technology which where we are far away at the moment because there is no collaboration in that. There is no infrastructure yet either. So, but that would be ideal. That is a dream.
Great, thank you, Patrick. So yes, unfortunately, that's all we've got time now. We could probably do another webinar just covering the questions everybody has sent in. But yeah, I'm sure, feel free to get in touch with our speakers. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions you may have or yeah, talk to them at the Sustainable Packaging Summit as well. We will continue the discussion there. So,
or even
yes,
before.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely, yes. So yeah, that leaves me to say thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you Marius, Patrick, and Ton. And yeah, just as a reminder, the Sustainable Packaging Summit will take place in Utrecht in the Netherlands from November 10th to November 12th. And for this year's event, we have added an extra day to make space for even more networking, interactive content, and breakout sessions. And there'll even be an exhibition hall party. So yeah, we look forward to seeing many of you there. And this webinar will be available on demand within the next couple of days, and you'll be sent a link to it to access it in case you want to recap on anything you've seen in today's session. So yes, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you very much again to our very knowledgeable speakers. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks to all of